Good afternoon. I believe you have a quorum, so I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:01 PM, sorry, 6:01. Item number 2. Yeah. Roll call. Mónica Salinas.
Here.
Carlos Fernandez, here. Ricardo Cervantes, here. JD Gonzalez, here. Rafael Martinez Quintanilla.
Here.
Luis Hinojosa, right here. Rick Laurel, and he's a pending oath, so I don't know if he was made aware that he could come, I guess, or not, but he's still not oathing. Arturo Dominguez,
Present.
Emilio Richer, present. Gene Lindgren,
Present.
Robert Morris Jr.,
Present.
Rodolfo Garza Benavides,
Present.
Jerry Jason Hinojosa, Gerardo Maldonado.
Present.
And we're missing no.
Present.
No, I got you. Thank you. Okay. And moving up to item number 3, public citizen comments. Any public or citizen comments that we may have? Nope. Okay. Moving up to item number 4, approval for the minutes of February 15. Have a motion?
Second.
Second. Monica seconds. Who seconds, sorry?
Motion.
Yes. Arturo, motion. Monica, second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Approved, or aye. That's for the minutes of February 15th. And now we move on to item number 5, and items for discussion. First item is discussion with possible action to change the meeting agenda to include additional information and any other materials incident thereto. Additional information. So open it up for discussion with item number 1. Discussion with possible action to change the meeting agenda to include additional information.
I had submitted some information to see, besides the roll call, if we could do the Pledge of Allegiance, and then director's report would be crossing of revenue for each month. We'd like to see if there's a variable, if it's going down or going up. An engineer's report, a director's report, and administrative approval minutes for. And basically, that's what I had submitted.
And the engineering report, what type of engineering report?
Here, whatever construction is going on,
On the expansion or the,
anything, fast lanes.
what are you talking about, just the bridge, or what are you talking about?
Anything related to trade.
The trade, okay.
Anything that an engineer is involved, so that everybody's aware of what's going on, if it's 50% accomplished or something like that. But, I mean, it's just an item that
Correct.
you all accept. If you don't accept, that's up to the
I'm just,
committee. Yes.
yes.
Good evening, members of the committee. Rosario Cabello for the record, Deputy City Manager. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. On the engineering report, I would just ask that maybe we do it maybe once a month or once a quarter, simply because we have consultants that come in from out of town, and that would be an additional expense. Or if you would allow maybe a virtual call in some cases,
Yes,
that would be
we've done
much
virtual.
appreciated.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, like, on the engineering report, like, the ones we've had has been mostly from the consultants that come in. How would we, on other things going on, who would coordinate, the minor, mid things or big things that are involved, and who would have to come in, and when would you designate if somebody is worthwhile to come in and talk about it?
And we've seen it virtual. If he's here because of other business, but yeah, we can entertain that. But if he's not here, we can see him virtual. It's just, if there's any projects going on, we'd like to hear what's.
And then also, I don't know the actual consultant or something internal, because I don't know how the rate sheet is for the consultant. Is it like a lawyer that every time he gets on a call for hours, do they start billing for hours? Do we actually meet that or not? Or we could just have every 2 months or every 4 months, like we've been doing it, when you just randomly pop it up, every 3-4 months, and give us a big report. And that's only on the expansion. I know you're also talking about anything related to
Yeah,
the Mines Road, anything
weighing
else.
ocean scales, I mean, anything,
So-
any project going on by city that has to do with trade.
Yeah, so I guess, would that be something that, we'll go to Mr. Morris, something that Ms. Limon and her team have, and that we could always have it as an item, and there could be no comments or yes comments, and just run it through whatever she has, without having to officially involve the consultant.
Yeah.
When the consultant is here, there's a meeting, and it's
Or
gonna
it's
match
relevant.
up, or a big event
Relevant.
that we would like to know about, for him to, at least every 3 months, probably pop in and give us something like that. Would that be okay?
If I
We all
may,
agree.
members of the committee, Yvette Limon for the record, I know Mr. Milky, our consultant with SEA, does make trips to Laredo, so if he's planning a trip to Laredo and we're scheduled to meet, then by all means. If not, he can do it virtual. And also, they provide us with a monthly report, as I've been sending to you all, of an update on how the projects are going. So I will continue to provide you with a monthly report on the construction projects. And then, should there be anything else regarding infrastructure, of course, I can include them on the agenda or get a report to give to you all. We'll communicate to you all what's going on with our projects within the city.
Thank you.
So are we okay on adding something like, just an update from Ms. Limon on updates that she has on
And then
construction?
when at all possible, if they're here, by all means, they'll be here. Mr. Milky has been here several times, and he will continue to do so upon additional information to share to you.
Okay, then
Yeah,
Mr. Morris, you want to
that's
comment?
what I was gonna say, is that, I don't see a need to bring the engineers down to give us an update on projects. Somebody here in the city's managing what they're doing.
Correct.
They ought to be able to come in and just say, these are the projects pending, this is status, pickups along the way or whatever. We don't incur an additional expense on it.
And just a question, is this just to inform us, or are we gonna discuss that? Because if we're gonna enter to discuss anything that comes up, it's gonna, it's gonna be difficult.
I think it should be a brief information.
A briefing, and then if we need to discuss it in the next meeting, we can put it on the
Correct.
agenda, right?
Yeah, it's just an update on what's going on in town concerning international trade through Mines Road, bridges, et cetera. And that way you have the report, so.
But just like we did last month during the meeting, you were able to exchange dialogue with the consultant, with Mr. Milky, and you were very engaged and asked questions, and he provided you an answer as to where we're at currently on the expansion project. He talked about the FAST, and then he talked about the expansion, gave you all the timeline, you engaged in conversation and asked questions so that can continue, whether it's in person or virtual. He'll be able to exchange dialogue. It doesn't have to be just informative to you all without the ability to ask questions or.
But, just a question, but, you want to add that permanently to the body of the agenda? Or just like,
Well,
keep in
for
mind like
discussion.
items for discussion?
No, it's
just
not
put
as an
it
item
like-
for discussion, it's just like a body, like the citizens' comments, just saying, if there's any
Okay.
update, and then also we could match it together, what you're saying on the update on the bridge crossings, just to have that number statistically, that's no discussion, that's kind of just to have
Uninformed.
informal.
I can
An
share
update
it,
just
I
to-
can share it with you all, but we posted on the city website, all our reports, our monthly reports,
Oh, they're on the
traffic,
city.
revenue, everything is on the city website. But I can definitely share it with you all if you choose to add it on to the agenda.
Exactly where in the website?
On the City of Laredo.
City of
webpage.
Laredo,
Is that
under
on the bottom?
departments, under bridge, I'll show you. And you have everything, the traffic distribution, which tells you the crossings by bridge, by month, the actual revenue, budget to actual, the revenue comparing last year to this year, the pedestrian, the non-commercial, commercial, the southbound crossings, what the activity you see southbound daily. We have all of that on the city website. We post it monthly, but if you
Monthly,
would.
It's up to date,
Yeah,
it's up to date,
yes.
it's up to date. I
Yes.
just get a lot of number from that webpage.
And also, if you want, like, previous data, you can go to the traffic distribution report, and if you scroll down, I think it has all the way to 2010, or that traffic distribution report is there. I wanna say it's till 2010. You can scroll down and see, 2010, right? See several fiscal years of the traffic,
For
so,
each bridge.
yes. Yes.
Thank you.
On the non-commercial, the pedestrian, and then the non-commercial at Bridge 2, at Colombia, and the buses, and you'll see the breakdown. I can show you at the end of the meeting through the city website.
So is that enough for us to, and then I guess we
I
could
know
see
it
it,
was there.
and we can analyze it, if we have any discussion or whatever, it's always nice. to
And
do
at
that.
any time, if you need data, like today, we have data from yesterday.
It's already there.
If you need
Thank you, appreciate it.
specific data, you can always let me know and we'll share it with you.
Perfect, thank you. And,
Any motions or anything on the changing of the agenda to add
And I also asked,
allegiance,
I also asked, the Secretary Valdez about the excused absence, and he says that he's not aware of any.
but we're gonna discuss that in item
Item
number
two?
That was part of.
two.
Item 2.
Yes.
Sorry.
This is just the general, yeah.
The general layout of the agenda for the meetings.
Yeah, because you had also asked that you wanted to add the Pledge of Allegiance. That's what you mentioned. Any up for discussion on that? Everybody has a copy.
If I may, Chairman, members of
Yes.
the committee, Kent Richard for the record. One of your packages, the very first page says Laredo Convention Visit to Bureau. What that package is, there's 21 different agendas in this package. Out of these 21, 8 of them on their agenda state the Pledge of Allegiance, and one agenda has the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. So I just wanted to pass that out to y'all as well, to let you know what other committees are doing here with the city of Laredo.
Correct.
So it's not unprecedented, but it's not 100% either, so.
Correct, yeah, it's,
Do we need a motion on item 1?
Yes.
Okay, I guess I'll motion to add the Pledge of Allegiance and the city reports as appropriate.
I'll second.
second.
Votes by Mr. Lindgren, second by Mr. Gonzalez.
And then all in favor? So that's approved for that item. We'll go to item number 2, discussion with possible action regarding the Port of Entry Advisory Committee by laws, Article 5, meeting and attendees requirements, and Article 6, officers, and any other matters inserted there too. So basically, one of the things is, I think our bylaws, the committee bylaws state that we should meet bi-monthly, so it's 6 times a year. For some reason, we started meeting monthly, I guess, we have skipped 1 or 2. So we want to recommend that we go back to what our committee, our bylaw says, and meet bi-monthly. Unless there's an emergency committee, we could always call that as well, and there's a procedure for that. And also with that, we kick into effect what Arturo was saying on the attendance that required. It calls out our bylaws require that at most someone has two absence per year.
I think it's 3.
Oh, 3 absence per year? Okay. And there's no excusable or not excusable. They're all
No,
valid the
it
same?
just says in Article 5, item D, it says, if any member is absent from 3 meetings during a calendar year, they shall be automatically removed from the committee. But
Each one of y'all committee members have a copy of the bylaws.
Correct. So we would, I guess we're not voting to implement the bylaws already there. It's just to set our meeting, and that will be set and schedule the next meeting date. So actually, that doesn't really require a vote, because we're voting, we can't vote to implement bylaws, they're already set. It was just a recommendation when we go out to set our scheduled next meeting date, that we do it for 2 months instead of
Monthly.
1 month.
If I may, so we're not changing anything in the bylaws?
No.
You're just
Applying it.
The bylaws, and we want to abide by the bylaws.
Correct.
When it comes to the scheduling of meetings and the attendance moving forward.
Correct,
So if we're meeting today and it's March, the next meeting will be in May,
correct,
so it's every 2 months.
yes.
to make sure that you all are here and not have to fall under the absence rule.
Yes.
And while we're on that also, if you feel that the time
Correct.
would need to change where it would be more feasible for everybody to be here, then we can discuss it as well now to see. Or the next time you meet, you can
Well, we
think
could
about
discuss it
it.
in item number 7 when we schedule the next meeting.
Yes,
So we don't have to, yeah.
go back.
You can do that too.
Okay.
So we're good on item number 2, no discussion, no nothing, then we'll
So we'll,
set the new time, and we'll discuss that time, and we'll choose that time as. Perfect. Item number 3, discussion with possible action regarding the rejection of bid fiscal year 23 engineering -10 for the Laredo Road Trade Bridge, U.S. Customs and Border Protection existing lanes way in motion project due to no bids received. And any other matter incident there too. Ms. Limon?
yes, good evening again. I brought this item before you. It was presented during Monday's city council meeting to inform mayor and council that we had not received any bids for the existing exit lanes way in motion system. So I brought this before the committee to brainstorm and discuss all of the, I guess, process moving forward. This is a project that a previous city management had decided on based on what the valley was doing. We do have House Bill 2861 that dictates that we can charge up to $200 per permit for northbound processing, and then 85% of that fee needs to go to TxDOT, and then we would need to contract with a company that issues northbound permits, and then whatever revenue is left over will belong to the city. So my question to the committee, and I want your thoughts to see if you feel that the expense for this project, based on the permits that we've issued for northbound movement, last year we issued 30 permits. So it doesn't seem to me cost effective to construct these way in motion scales if the activity is not there. The difference between Laredo and the Valley is that in Hidalgo County, the RMA is the agency that issues a permit, charges a fee, issues a permit. And they do it because they have the federal safety inspection station as we do in Colombia. I spoke to the gentleman, the director of the RMA, and he indicated that every truck that enters their facility must have a permit. If they don't have a permit, then they send them back into Mexico. They don't charge them a penalty fee, or they don't let them come in. They send them back into Mexico, so they have to obtain a permit.
I'm sorry, a permit if they're overweight.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
And
yes.
Right here, we just find them. Oh,
No,
but there's no motion. There's no-
We at the bridge, we're not an agency to enforce.
So
we
DOT is
don't-
the only one that finds them when they put them in.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
yes,
So
yes.
basically, this is outside World Trade Bridge?
Yes.
Correct. So DPS or DOT historically used to park under the bridge, and the weight in motion that we had before was for them.
Right.
It was something they did to benefit them. It's a checkpoint.
Right.
You know, checks and balances. I work for a trucking company. I run a trucking company. Legal weight on a 5-axle truck and trailer is 80,000 pounds. Maybe once every 3 years, we get a trailer come from Mexico that has over 80,000 pounds. in our company.
Accidentally.
It's not normal. It's
Yeah,
not
but
normal.
accidentally, right?
Accidentally,
Yeah.
and it's not on purpose, it's accidentally. So we end
Or
up,
intentionally, but they do get the permits. Like I said, we
No, no,
issued
the
30
problem is over there, they
permits.
do it on purpose.
so there is overweight loads that cross, but those are already, they're overweight. So you cannot, well, you can bring a dry van with divisible goods and weigh 85,000 pounds from Nuevo Laredo to Laredo, Texas. But then that either it's gonna get unloaded here, or it's gonna get divided, because you cannot travel with that north, it's illegal. It has to be non-divisible freight, can be one piece only, and those are the ones that get a permit. I don't see a need to do the weighted motion, number one, and the actual offenses, I believe it's very minimum. You know, all of us that are over-the-road trucking companies, we have a scale in the yard, and every driver, before he leaves, he has to scale, and he has to balance the weights, 12,000, 34,000, and 34,000. And if something happens to be 81, everything stops, and we have to remove freight and call the customer and see what happened. It's not something common, at least in what I do.
In your industry, Poliana, I think we need to hear from most of the industry and from the transportation, because like what they do over there is they're coming in loaded in Mexico, you can't travel, and like you said, they just want to get to the warehouse and redistribute there, and that you can do. What you're saying is it's legal is to go further out with overweight, even with permits, they won't give you a permit for palletized products.
You cannot get an overweight permit for divisible items.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
But to cross, yes.
No, it's illegal, it's still illegal, they shouldn't give it to you. They shouldn't.
Lo único que justifica el permiso, como bien dice acá mi colega, es cuando es una sola pieza. Si tú puedes dividir, no hay permisos para eso. Y coincido que no veo el costo-beneficio de las básculas, salvo que no tenga información respecto a cuáles van a ser los beneficios de poner las básculas. Es mínimo los que vienen de exceso de peso. Ya le tenemos bastante miedo al DPS, no necesitamos básculas.
There is a talk, for some reason, it always comes up, and I guess we never get to the bottom of it, that the Valley has that option, and they permit the Mexican companies to come in with more weight, and they're going to the warehouses, and I'm purposely going with more weight, palletized more weight.
Sí, es algo muy especial, y hasta donde tengo información, eso va acompañado que en la ciudad hay ciertas calles que fueron preparadas para manejar ese tipo de overweight.
Pero con el permiso, por eso requieren sacar
con el permiso, entonces, si lo quisiéramos implementar aquí, no serían solamente las básculas y los permisos, sino ver cuáles calles fueron construidas para soportar
allá
ese
sí hay
peso.
algo así, pero está hecho,
Allá sí,
diseñado logísticamente.
y hay
para
un
eso.
mapa, ¿verdad?, donde tú sacas el permiso y puedes circular solamente en esas calles. Si tu bodega no está en esa calle, tú no puedes, no tienes ese beneficio.
That makes a very clear point.
They're also governed by the Texas House Bill number 474, just like us. Ours is House Bill 2861, and it also specifies the corridor where
They did 3
you
years
can go.
before we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, no, that's fine. So, Ms. Cobb.
You also might want to tell them that we don't have an enforcement entity, so no one would be able to enforce it for us. So they pass, and no one's gonna say, you're violating it. So we don't have an entity like DPS or space to be able to do it. The project itself, if there was a lot of traffic, would cost us anywhere from $4.5 to $5 million to do. And so we would be doing this project with no activity whatsoever. Just something for you all to consider.
Okay, so, Kinsey, I'll be the last one.
Sure.
No, you're not gonna be last, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'll be the last one.
I was gonna say, as we are courting more and more produce companies, avocados for instance, they do end up being over 80,000 pounds, otherwise they have to leave 4 pallet spaces in the back. And so maybe that's one of the reasons that the Valley does advertise more. They have heavyweight corridors, they generate some money for their municipalities. And so some of it's marketing in the way that we're able to promote Laredo for more and more produce and agriculture.
But
Yeah, but again,
I don't think we have an issue, even with the produce, because they have to go to the safety inspection station at Columbia, and I haven't heard from anybody that they've required them a permit just like they do at the Hidalgo County RMA.
I guess they do their risking it, that if one of every truck, one of every 10 trucks gets caught, they get fined. But
Yeah.
there's no permit allowed for the reasons that Jerry and Mr. Fernández said. Okay. Mr. Morris?
I just wanted to say, this issue, I've only been here a year, but the issue came up with Alpha last year, and they were promoting the idea that we wanted to be able to bring these types of, the foolishes, they call them, where they're the double 20-footers that have 80,000 pounds, I think. And we're not seeing those come across because they are overweight, and everybody's splitting them into 3 trailers in Nuevo Laredo and incurring that expense and double movement when they could be doing it over here, like they do in McAllen. And so that was the issue, was why
That's
can't
how
we-
the idea was born for this.
That was how the idea was born, because we wanted to be able, and I can tell you that when I had my business a few years back, I brought over a lot of sugar, and the sugar came to Nuevo Laredo in the full list, and we had to split it in Nuevo Laredo because they wouldn't give us permits here. And then those shipments actually moved over to McAllen because they could do it over there, and they saved that expense and that extra movement. And so this is, I think, what the result of or the beginning of the conversation as I know it. And so if we can't split those, or if we could split those, and be able to weigh those so that we could then attract that business over here. And like Gene says, we do have some new products that are trying to come. Maybe we.
Yeah, I think what Mr. Fernandez did was answer our question and answered our uncertainty of why they can and why we can't. And I guess, just for the record, he showed me the map of Hidalgo County.
I'll just
Una
follow
disculpa,
with
presidente, era acá con Joe.
But, yeah, so I think that answered came back and answered why they can do it and why we can't. It's got to do more with the planning, logistics of the city, of the streets. It's not just of, if we have a scale and we give them a permit or not. So it's, okay.
So then as a board, would we want to promote or the idea that we should start planning for some of those corridors, or?
I think we gotta do our homework and maybe the developers get them involved and see if that one day or not, has to do, but it's not gonna, probably for the neighbors, right now they can't, I'm guessing, add that specifications. They can do it up there in the new developments, but to get there, those streets are not gonna make them over again.
But
That's a
do we know if we do have the infrastructure, or we know that we don't have the infrastructure? That would be the first question,
In the
right?
legislation, it talks about Loop 20, it talks about Mines Road. It's the
83, 50,
the text dot
59,
roads.
yeah.
That's why they take 80%. But what about all the roads
city
that they
roads.
damage from the city? They don't have money to pave streets, and that's the issue here. I mean, if we're making money in the U-turns, I mean, they think can generate to pave our streets and do them in concrete. The issue here is, we had the single weigh in motion scale, and we don't wanna go to that route again. I mean, they did the expansion on that road, and they opened 4 lanes, but they wanna weigh those things. Either we put those weigh in motions
Well, you
in
need 8
exit gates,
or 4.
or we're gonna go back to that thing again, because TxDOT says, if you don't weigh them, I'm gonna weigh them, because they're overweight and they're damaging the roads. And so you get trucks in your warehouse and they're overweight. I mean, I get, and they load them and they come back, oh, you have to remove the pallet because it's overweight. That guy should have paid $200 to be driving in an overweight, I mean, in any of the streets that
No,
we have.
but nobody gives you that permit, that's what we're saying.
Well, it should be accessible. You pay the
No,
$200
but
and that's it.
we can't.
We have 3 police officers there at World Trade Bridge to be dealing with those things.
So it's
to
a
be-
fine. You can only give a permit to undivisible merchandise products.
And then again, we used to have coffee here, and it was a special equipment, but you have to have a special equipment to travel. You can go 120,000 pounds. There's some citrus juice that goes through the valley as well. That thing is over 100,000 pounds. But it's special equipment. You have to have special equipment to go overweight. But anybody that you know that goes overweight, they should pay that fee.
But you can't, it's
You
not
cannot.
allowed.
Why
You
not?
can't,
Why not?
because of the 2 laws that Mr. Fernandez just said.
Mira, de hecho, yo creo que si el objetivo es que podamos cruzar por este puente cargas con más peso, no necesita necesariamente las básculas. Ya lo hacemos cuando es una sola pieza.
Sí,
Y
sacamos
una sola
permiso.
pieza tú la ves y no sabes si es overweight. Y los transportistas sabemos que es overweight y sabemos que tenemos que sacar un permiso. De hecho, salvo revisarlo, no sé si lo recuerdes, Jerry, hay un permiso para un 10% más, bueno, de los 80 puedes excederte hasta 88,000 libras en ciertos, bueno, para cualquiera. Sí, creo que lo haces por cliente. Un Jumex, por ejemplo, que debe ser conocido para todos, puedes tramitar, tengo que actualizarme, y no se utiliza tanto. Yo veo el costo-beneficio, no creo que eso vaya a cambiar mucho, y tal vez se pudiera hacer la prueba sin básculas a ver si se puede, y el daño que se le va a hacer a las calles, porque si las calles no fueron construidas, nos las vamos a acabar así.
Esa es la realidad, para eso es el dinero,
Ahorita
para
les
poder.
estaba pasando el corredor del Valle, ahí porque hace tiempo revisé eso. Hay ciertas calles por donde puedes, no es nada más cruzar e ir a cualquier bodega.
Yeah, no.
Entonces
But
tenemos
instead
que
of doing-
pensar más que en las básculas, las calles para circular con overweight.
Claro, pues tú pagas y voy a mi destino final a este lugar y te deben de dar un mapa, así es como te vas a ir a
pero
I,
ese mapa
I
no
do
lo
agree,
tenemos
Arturo,
diseñado.
but
No hay
first we need
calles
to
aquí que
have the
reciban
routes,
eso,
the streets prepared, and then we move to
Lo
this
tenemos para
project.
hazmat también.
Just a question, do you have I know that Jerry made a reference to, you said you only authorized 30 permits. Do you have the information, or can you get the information from DPS to how many that they've actually penalized to see how many were overweight?
Because you can find out data if it's really necessary or not. And, I think it's minimal, I agree, because, and just to share, the drivers, just comments from the drivers, the reason why they don't like going to Columbia, because the weight's there. So they come to the World Trade Bridge. So, it could be a possibility, but then we have to look at the study first. We have to look at the information available. Can you get that from DPS?
I'll check and see if they have any citations for,
Overweight
I'll
on
contact
municipal projects.
the enforcement division. I know they do yearly.
And with that information alone, we can warn if it's necessary or not, or just, hey, call out the necessary individuals, so, just
Well,
something to look at, so.
Sure, we'll do
And
more
the idea
research.
was more of allowing companies to consolidate the freight and bring in less trucks with more weight, pay the permit, and do the logistics services in the US instead of breaking it up in Nuevo Laredo and save one crossing. So that's kind of where, but again, they won't give you a permit because it's under the part.
Going to Carlos Fernandez's industry, you just know whenever the driver hooks up, he says, hey, me siento bien pesado, they won't cross it because they know DPS is out there and they stop this load, they have to tow it, the expenses involved, $500 in addition to, just additional expenses, just something to look at.
Okay, so, yes, last.
I would like to say just, it's not just a matter, as I see it, it's not just a matter of if it's worth it, we're gonna, get some revenue from that exact, the action that we're gonna take on the bascula, but the fact that we can promote the port with another service, we don't wanna be in disadvantage with other ports. This is the most important port, and if that's a fact that we can, wait in when promoting the port, but maybe we would have to, consider it.
We have to
right?
study in the back end, what is
Exactly.
actually the actual thing.
Why do you wait going south?
Why do we wait? To protect the integrity of the bridge span and the city's roadways.
Thank you.
No, the same northbound, yeah.
Yeah, but we don't, they don't get permits, they just find them.
Pues sí,
But we
that's
don't,
what- but
but
now we have a
PD or
legal thing to
PDS.
do and do a permit.
Well, I
But
think if we
won't allow
can
you to give a permit.
have what streets we
No, no te da.
have prepared for that type of,
Una
traffic,
pieza.
because we cannot, everyone wants to pay the 200 and bring a lot of weight, but the streets are not gonna be prepared. So
Right,
we
and
need to
the-
prepare the routes and then find out if we can
The House
allow that.
bill specifies,
Una
it
pieza
says,
así, ahora puedes separar.
issuance of permits, right? It says the commission may authorize the city of Laredo to issue permits for the movement of oversized or overweight vehicles carrying cargo in Webb County on the following roadways: Farm to Market Road 1472 between its intersection with State Highway Loop 20 and the northernmost of its intersections with World Trade Center Loop. 2, Farm to Market Road 1472 between the northernmost of its intersections with World Trade Center Loop and its intersection with a char loop if a char loop project in Webb County is constructed. 3, a char loop between its intersection with Farm to Market Road 1472 and its intersection with Interstate Highway 35 if the Achar Loop project in Webb County is constructed. And 4, Beltway Parkway between its intersection with Achar Loop and its intersection with Interstate Highway 35 if the Achar Loop project in Webb County is constructed. In addition to the roadways described by subsection A, The city of Laredo may designate and issue permits for the movement of oversized or overweight vehicles carrying cargo in Webb County on roadways under the city's jurisdiction and control.
So the city could give permits even though it's not there. And the point that I always like to make is when I was doing the product that I did during my time, it was about 5,000 trucks a year. And if we had issued permits on those, that's over $1 million in fees that we could have issued, but we didn't. And that's business that was lost to McAllen. And so I'm just saying we have roads that are designated, Mines Road is one of them, and the city can authorize movement over other roads. Obviously, they're not designed for some of that weight, but if we're collecting the fees anyway, well, then we can maintain those roads or even build them up to standards if it's sufficient.
Mayor?
You know.
Yes, I completely agree with what you're saying, but 85% of those revenues go to TxDOT. So what's left is about 150,000.
15%, and then we have to split that.
And that 15% we have to give to the person who's running it for it. And so at the end of the day, we might even have to pay more than what we have.
And this being negotiable? I mean, you TxDOT put the way in motions and we collect 50 or the percentage that you, I mean,
Mentions it on the House bill.
So we have to get the House bill adjusted, so.
And please don't forget, we have to keep an eye, and we are gonna have waiting motions going out from the bridge, and what's gonna happen when they found out that it's a 500 pounds more than the 80, what?
80,000 pounds. So
80,000? So are we gonna stop all the traffic for those 500 that they are overweight? Like, we need just to consider everything, like,
That was the intent, to bring it before you so that you can start brainstorming. I mean, I don't expect a decision today.
it's a competitive
But-
thing. That's what it is.
Yes.
It's a competitive thing. I think we need more information on the back end, more information on what you're saying, and we can definitely back it up in the trade industry, can come up with ideas, and it all involves competitiveness. But I think right now, we don't have the means to make a decision on how we want to go forward with it. I guess in our own responsibilities, we should continue to investigate and bring ideas if we can to future meetings. Yes.
If I may, Chairman, just for the record, Kent Richard again. Northbound overweight permits, I looked at them from the year 2015 through present time. We're averaging each year an average of 40 overweight permits
Per year.
a year. For the year 2023, from January 1 to present, we have 0.
Oh.
So that's a little more information.
Not
if I
enforced,
may,
they're not enforcing.
as a trucking company that actually moves
Heavy equipment.
heavy equipment. So there's three things that we gotta look at here. A 53-foot dry van is built to handle only 80,000 pounds gross weight. That includes the truck, the trailer, and the cargo. Average 40 to 42,000 pounds. That's what they're made for, because that's what we use our trailers to go over the road. Those of us that own trailers, dry vans, I don't want 50,000 or 60,000 on the dry van. It's gonna damage my equipment faster, and it's not good for my business. So as a trucking company, I'm not in favor of that, number one. Number two, I do have multi-axle lowboys that handle overweight, and those are purchased specifically for that purpose. And yes, you can put 100,000, 200,000 pounds on that. It's gonna cost you, and it's costing us, the trucking companies, to purchase that equipment. So there's two things there that we need to make sure they're completely understandable. The full thing, that's a different story. That is, if I understand what a full is, two trailers being pulled by one truck. Each trailer still has whatever it can capacity handle. That's a totally different subject.
Yes.
That's illegal, as far as I know, in the state of Texas or in Laredo. That can be changed, I guess, but that has nothing to do with us. You know, that is completely out of our control, 100%.
Those fullest, I think, are the issue. That's the business that we're talking about, we lost to the valley.
And it's just, it's a matter of, I mean, it's still two 40 or 53-foot dry vans, one pulled behind each other, I guess. I mean, I can see where that could be a little dangerous.
Jerry, in addition to the weight balance, you also have to balance it as well, right? So that's
It's
another
12,000,
factor here.
34 and 34, and you cannot go over on
And you
two axles.
play with it with the axles a little
Yes,
bit and get the plus
you move
minus.
the axles, the tandems up and down, and additionally, the permits coming out of Mexico into the US, overweight or overdimensionally, we are stepping on state roads, FM 1472, 255, I-35, they're all state roads, state maintained highways. legally, we are required to, if I have an overdimensional overweight, I have to get a state permit, and we do get a state permit.
Yeah.
Do we need a city permit? According to the city, maybe we do. You know, that's probably why you don't see a lot of city permits being purchased. If you run a report through TxDOT, how many permits we purchase from them to leave Laredo, there's a lot. Because we need to travel to wherever we're going.
And
So
you
that's the
don't-
difference.
So you don't go in the city streets? You
No.
just, you don't touch the city streets?
World Trade Bridge or Columbia Bridge goes on FM 1472, and then it goes into Pinto Valle, where I am, and that's not a city-maintained road. And then my drivers leave Pinto Valle, get on FM 1472, get on 255, and go all the way out to 35. So I only need a state permit.
So I guess this is an item that can be discussed further and throughout the associations and the trade groups and see if it's something that we should continue to take.
Yvette, you're gonna sit there, reach out, and see if you can get the information from DPS, right?
Yes.
That's a good thing.
Yes, and I'll share the House bill with you all, I'll forward it to you all, so you can have it and read through it
So-
carefully.
No motion or anything for item number 3.
We'll continue to do the research and then
Correct, on our back
come
end,
back,
yes.
and then if ultimately we say let's move forward, then we'll be a little more aggressive in trying to see if we can recruit companies to submit proposals, and we'll put it out again.
Perfect, thank you. We should go on to item number 4, discussion regarding the Washington DC legislative trip from committee members that attended and action items needed and any others matter instant there too. So I guess we don't want to take up a good hour, but a good probably 10 minutes or discuss of anybody that attended the Washington trip and any good conversations or good things that came up, and us as a committee and as leaders in our trade groups and our associations, what items were talked about or were left on the table that need follow-up, that we together can work with city government or other trade groups, that we have to go back and make any recommendations to any of the conversations that happened in Washington. So whoever's open discussion wants to start, Lieutenant B. Arturo, he loves to talk.
I'll be the last one. Go ahead.
You don't like it when you're the last one.
I can start, I mean.
There you go.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank you for being there and supporting, of course, our presidential permit and the expansion. The first day, I, along with the industry, met with the State Department, with Hillary Quam, who is the border coordinator, and Heidi Gomez, who is the director of the Office of Mexican Affairs. And again, it's nothing new to them because we've done this several times. So we just went again to stress the importance of, we know that it's out of the State Department's hands, but just to kind of let them know of the efforts that we're doing to continue moving the presidential permit and requesting that both processes run concurrent, right? That they run the presidential permit application review and they run the NEPA process concurrent so that we don't cause any delays to the project. So that was pretty much the intent of the meeting. You all were there. I know Arturo provided them with studies not that they don't know, they understand our land port, they know we're the #1 inland port, they know the importance of the project. So we just kind of went again and made them aware that we're still pursuing, we're still moving forward, we're still doing whatever we need to do to get these two processes running concurrent. I also participated in the meeting with the U.S. House of Representatives Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure Minority Staff. We met with Kathy Diedrich, of course, stressing the importance of infrastructure in Laredo, #1 inland port. We talked about different infrastructure needs. I had the privilege, along with Ms. Cabello, to attend the meeting at the White House. We met with Julie Chavez Rodriguez, who is the Senior Advisor to the President and Director of the White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs. Again, she was not aware, but we made her aware of the intent and what the purpose of our meeting was. We provided her with data. We provided her the studies that Arturo had. He shared it with the council members, and they provided them the studies, and also requesting that the White House look at the executive order and allow the presidential permit process to continue through the review along while we're completing the NEPA. I also attended the meeting with Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation minority staff. Their Senator Cruz is the ranking member. We met with Paul Wasik. He's the Deputy Policy Director for Transportation Policy, and also with Andrew Miller. They were both present, very interested in our project and the need to increase throughput. They've followed up with us. They've asked us additional questions. We have the draft with the responses ready to be provided to them so that they can continue to assist us in moving both processes. And then my last meeting was also with the U.S. House of Representatives, House Transportation and Infrastructure Chairman, Mr. Sam Graves, also expressing the importance. We sang the same song, and but that's what's going to allow us to succeed in obtaining the presidential permit and while complying with the NEPA process. So you all, I know you had other meetings, so I'll.
See, so the White House didn't say anything about doing it at the same time? They're gonna wait till,
They didn't give us any answers.
They did not give us any answers. As a matter of fact, they were very doubtful that the president, that no one knows what the president's going to do. It's a brand new process, brand new president. And so we left without too much hope, sadly.
On what issue, on the both permits or on the expansion permit?
so this,
Running both processes concurrent.
so we have this issue. When Trump was there, he issued the Valley's permit like in
3 months,
couple of
3 months.
And then he did the
KCS.
railroad like in 4 months, so it was a pretty fast process, and he got the permits out. In this one, they submitted it when Trump was there, but now the new administration came in, and they said, you know what? Now the Biden administration is changing the process back to the old version, which you submit all your environmental
NEPA,
studies.
you do the
And
environment.
after they finished all the environmental studies, then they start the review of the application.
Right.
So that can take 4 years or.
Correct, that's what the consultant explained.
So
Mr.
they're trying to say, hey, start both of them at the same time, and that's what they were requesting.
Oh, I thought you were talking about both bridges. No, you're talking about both applications.
Processes,
the
both processes.
Environmental and the presidential.
At the
Okay,
same
yes.
time.
And that's what Milky was talking about.
Milky.
Yes.
Yes.
So we're on the same issue when Milky came, and you guys weren't in the information. Okay, perfect.
And the importance of the expansion was, and those were all the studies that are there. We had, the RMA did a study, Nuevo Laredo World Trade Bridge did a study. We gave them a comp plan of the mobility, chapter 4. I gave them the COMSE presentation that we did to the governor. We give them the 7-day, 2,000 trucks that go to almost all the states in 7 days. And so I told them, this is more than $1 million of studies. Please read them, because it tells you when we're gonna saturate World Trade Bridge. So this bridge has to be done immediately. So by the time we get to that thing, it doesn't get saturated, because we're already dealing with a new bridge. And that's basically what we were trying to do.
Okay. Well, it's surprising information that they kind of they didn't know what it was gonna be. They didn't give a yes or no, how, sadly, it was probably the people there didn't even know what, yeah.
But we just have to push.
I guess keep
And we have
pushing
to
the
follow
same,
up.
yeah, the same team that's always been pushing for that.
Probably more than one trip to Washington.
All right. Any other, good?
Yeah, like, you know, I sit there and a couple of conversations that we had and dealing with CT-PAT taking consideration where 30%, director said that they're short of funds. Henry said he could assist in that, so I approached the director of CT-PAT and I actually talked to Troy Miller about that. Say, hey, what's going on? We need some help. We also had a meeting with Dennis McKenzie, who is the ex-executive director of field operations. We had that discussion with him, and we had a company of a few individuals that were in the room as well, and we conveyed that message. And I've got a proposal already that they've given me some funding requests, but I don't want to throw a caveat on there because I don't want them just to sit there and say, I want the funding for CT-PAT. I want to sit there and include Laredo in there, so I want to sit there and see what we could do to get that expansion there. So I think we
So is that
move forward.
affecting them the visits, the not enough money, visits to Laredo to certify companies in the border? Or what is their main problem with the?
But he said they don't have funding, they're lacking staff and also funding for travel. So one of the requests that he was requesting, because he wants to have 3 new staffers just dedicated for our area. I want to make sure I throw that caveat out there as well. In addition to the travel expense, he's not asking for much in government funds, taking consideration. I think it's $4 or $5 million. He said that would help him out. But I'm going to make sure that caveat's on there. Hey, I want Laredo on there to increase the transportation industry to allow them, and just taking, especially on the Laredo side, so we can increase the numbers that we have at the fast lanes that we just had recently built up, and that's that we're at anywhere from, at our monthly meetings, anywhere from 27 to 30%. And we need to increase that number. We gotta get at least to 40 at least,
But 40% of what?
40% of usage of that fast lanes.
But the fast lanes is part of CT Path?
Yes.
Yeah, it's part of the same process.
That's,
You have to be CT.
you have to be CT Path to be fast?
Correct.
Okay, I thought it was a different, okay.
The same thing. So, that's just something that we're working on, and they happen within a month. The only thing now, I gotta sit there and see, hey, Mr. Cuellar, are you gonna sit there really, hold you to his word on that? So see, hopefully it goes through, so then.
Wait, Joe, can you add what they mentioned about so many meetings? Why didn't we all go to one meeting and?
That's a touchy subject. Yeah, but still, take consideration is, the city focuses on their meetings. And the one thing is, I'm on some advisory committees, and CBP asked, why didn't you communicate with me? I got a meeting next week that I gotta go to Seattle and visit with these individuals. And I have to apologize, because the fact is the city wants to do their thing. They wanna have their meetings. They go out there and they use their contacts. Whereas, hey, I go there because I wanna support the city, but I don't go, I let the city run their show. So they come back thinking, hey, we want to have a meeting as well. And so they're saying, why aren't you communicating with us? I go, because the city has their staffers and they do their own thing. So they want to know, why aren't we meeting up? Why aren't we having the same meetings, or we're having duplicate meetings? Because we have to set meetings on a separate side. And there's a agency, they have Office of Field Operations, and there's Office of Trade. Office of Trade is the one that sets up all the meetings. A lot of the meetings were scheduled through Henry, which was, I'm very grateful, but at the same time, the city's working through their meetings, trying to meet up with, the head of the agencies, and I think it's great publicity, I think it's great photo opportunity, but the people getting the work done is other individuals, which we have access to. And so next week, I gotta go out there and say, hey, my apologies, we didn't go through you, it's 2 different agencies, the city and the trade, so I have to sit there, convey that message, let them know there's 2 entities trying to coordinate that instead of one unity going out there. So just food for thought.
Yeah, that's an issue that, like I said, we hate bringing that up, but that's an issue that has been always negatively impacting us, and compared to different regions and the Austin region and the Valley, that they all go together and see how this, I think this is a one step further, that we didn't have a BOE committee. Right now, we talk about same issues, and I think this trip would have been probably a year after we formed this committee. It would have been greater, get more organized and go as one with, I don't know what staffers you're talking about, which people go in what direction, but maybe for next year, we could coordinate and see how much we could work together with, since we have all the trade groups involving international trade and those type of ideas, and that everybody gets to present their, even if the city goes and presents it, but presents your issues, and the whole trade, and it's probably 10 issues, and together you guys choose 5 that go in, and the most importantly, but see how we could kind of start being involved in going together. That's the issue we always hear.
I want
We
to be a
always
little
hear that issue.
yeah,
Now,
I
why
want
do
to be
we
a little
not
more limited in the aspect where, I know the city has to deal with different politicians and the congressmen and the senators, but I'm really more focused on the customs aspect. And the thing
I
about
think that's a little
it,
before, the senators and the reps,
Yeah,
but
that's
the
something else.
operational people.
and the operational aspect, I said, like I said, next week I have to beg and I have to sit there I'm up for that, but the fact is just to make sure I maintain my relationships and let them know there was no strain on it. But I've gotten several calls and said, why are we working together on this? And like Emilio said right now, the other regions, the unity is there, and that's something that we're kind of lacking. Taking into consideration, the agenda was out on that Friday or Thursday. They always wait till the last minute. We should be a little bit more proactive.
May I? Thank you. So, for the Austin legislature, let's go there. We didn't get the agenda till that Saturday before we traveled on the Monday. And the reason that was happening was because there was, if you recall, Austin had a power outage, and a lot of their entities were closed, and we could not confirm meetings. That is one of the major reasons why we could not even ourselves obtain. So once we got to Austin, that's when they started confirming, that Monday, they started confirming the different dates. And so this was a very different meeting for that. For the federal legislation, one of the things that we are having a really hard time with, because the office space is so much smaller, they had limited seating. And so sometimes they were saying, we can only have 5, we can only have 8 in some cases, right? I'm not saying all of them, but that was one of the reasons why a lot of people, and the priority is mayor and council, and then 1 or 2 staffers, and then if there's availability, that's when others come in.
So there's an idea of getting a conference room at the hotel and bringing those people into the conference room where everybody can attend those meetings.
That would be
Whoever
great.
wants to attend.
That would be great. However, those entities, they reserve days. They say, I'm only gonna meet Mondays and Tuesdays, as an example, and I'm blocking it. And so I have the next city coming in, the next entity coming in. And so we wish they would be able to come to us, but unfortunately, they don't give us an hour like they do in Austin. In Washington, they only give us 30 minutes. You know, we're lucky if we get an hour.
But just taking into consideration, we know our trips in March. I mean, and a lot of times those meetings are scheduled a week before, 2 weeks before. I mean, we got a year to plan, and we can go within 1 or 2 months, and trust me,
Yes.
going there as much as I go, they're willing to go out there and reach out to us. They'll meet us, and they'll make accommodations, but we can't give them, hey, you give me 3 days' notice, JD, what's going on? I'm like, hey, I'm trying to work with you. I'm sorry, man, this is what I have.
For Austin, it's very different than it is, like I said, for Washington. But we have legislative people, lobbyists who are trying to work on it with weeks and months in advance, and they don't give us commitments. And that was one of our frustrations this year, particularly where we're saying, well, why aren't they giving us the dates? They're not giving us the dates. And so one of the reasons was this power outage in Austin. In Washington, we have top-notch lobbyists who are trying to get it, but they won't commit to us.
Well, I guess I'm gonna have to sit there and say, taking into consideration the expenses going out to lobbyists, and there's a lot of us that have, outreach that we deal directly.
Yes.
We have direct outreach. I'm
And that's
hoping
part
that you
of
reach out
the
to us.
meeting 3-4 months before, create an agenda together, and whatever you can set up, like together with the private sector and the trade groups, see what we can do together, and then they'll fill in the holes with the lobbyists or whatever. But in the agendas, and when there's, 5 people, for that issue, who has the most important agenda, then there's not Alpha has to go, and customs brokers and transportation, just at least, what topic is that? Oh, this, okay, I don't need to go, would you go, Jake? So kind of, I think we could work better and prepare for next year. I think we have the time, we're taking a month out of it, once a month, and we're gonna meet once every 2 months. We have that time to set it up.
Hey, you know what,
So,
and just to share, even within ourselves, I reached out to Mr. Conchas to help me out, and I kind of lagged on including everybody in our group. But I know that we're already starting a program. I think you're working on LEDC's trying to, and also with the chamber, they're trying to work out to try to get in the meeting just by ourselves as stakeholders. And I think that we can move forward with that and kind of mesh everything together to say, hey, we got some united front to sit there and say we really need that in the operational aspect and also in the government aspect, so.
okay, well, thank you very much for your comments. I don't know if anybody has any other different important subject.
One suggestion,
You gotta do something different.
Mr. Maldonado, go ahead.
Ms. Cabello,
Yes, sir.
one suggestion. So, one suggestion from the transportation group.
Yes.
So when the city wants to go to either Austin or DC and meet with TxDOT or DOT or transportation committees, we are a tool for the city. The transportation locally, we are involved with the local association, state associations, and federal level associations. What does that mean? We talk to these people, to these entities on a regular basis. And yes, we understand that the city wants to go and do everything as a city of Laredo, and we completely respect that. But if you would include, and I speak for my industry, who I represent, us, in setting up those meetings, and not only say the city is here, but also this person from the transportation community, that person, the chair of this, the chair of that, that could help you get better attention from them, in our humble opinion.
Yes.
So use this as a resource, because like JD said, we all have relationships with a lot of state and federal entities, because it's what we do every day. And we want to work together with the city and be closer and show up as a group. And not only, respectfully, not only say the city of Laredo is here, say the city of Laredo and the transportation community of Laredo is here to talk to you.
That is powerful.
And that, I mean, we should try, let's try it one time, and you'll see the difference.
And if I could add as well, just to let you know, because a lot of the meetings that were scheduled, there are just people that they pass it on to somebody else. I mean, we can get the key individuals, as Jerry said. We deal with them on a national, on a federal level, and on state, more the brokers, we deal on local level. But we have their attention, we have their ear, so hopefully we can work together.
Yes, definitely, thank you.
Thank you very much for all the input.
I'd like to add something, coming to the mic now. Vanessa Perez, Mayor Pro Temp, for the record. Just want to add that one of the things that I've been stressing is the need for us to have two sectors of the way that we identify ourselves, not just the city of Laredo, but also Port Laredo. Because when we go as City of Laredo, we're advocating for the needs of our residents and our citizens. But when we go as Port Laredo, we're advocating for the needs of the port, right? And if we want them to start looking at this as two entities, I think we also ourselves have to start looking at ourselves as two entities. Because take Hatchar-Ruthinger, for example, we talked about that at MPO earlier. Hatchar-Ruthinger primarily services the industry, it services trade, and we have to allocate our CAT $7, which is supposed to go for the entire county, to this corridor, which really doesn't alleviate the frustrations that our citizens have, but it helps with the trade industry. So I think what would be helpful is for the city to start to segment ourselves into two sections, where when we go to Washington or Austin as the city of Laredo, there's also a Port Laredo visit that's like separate. So when we ask for meetings, we could say City of Laredo delegation or Port Laredo delegation. And it's two separate entities, because I think we should get money for the Port Laredo and money for the City of Laredo in two separate pots, versus one pot of money, and then for us to have to decide amongst ourselves, is it more important to put it into the port or the city? And those are two separate things. So maybe this delegation was for city, but maybe we could plan another one that's to go and advocate for the port. And instead of waiting a whole year, maybe we could do that within a few months as well. Through the Port of Entry Committee, through this other entity, because Port Laredo, you know, that's also part of our identity, but it's one segment of our identity, and it's a big one. And I think it would be helpful for us to unite all of you all, like, you know, together is a very powerful force. So maybe we can get a Port Laredo, Washington visit.
The one thing I'd add to that, you know, I'm glad you bring that up, and I thank you for this Port Authority, this Port of Entry Commission, that we have for our opinions and our advice. But you should create something with teeth, and the Port Authority, something that we've been talking about, I know it's been discussed by several of our members with funding, so we can go ahead and do that and create some kind of force that would allow us to sit there and speak on behalf of the port. I know it's been talked about, it's been frowned upon, but I think there's a way we can get funding without having to create additional funding and work together on that. So I hope that we move forward with that. So just a humble opinion.
Thank you, JD. Thank you, Ms. Perez. So if there's anything else, we could move on to next item.
Chairman, I would like to add, I think, I'm hoping, Mr. Bay, you're not being put on the spot or in defensive. Overall, my opinion, I was one of a half a dozen or 10 or 12 people from the private sector that supplemented the attendance in a lot of the meetings. And I want to commend the city management, Yvette, Convention and Visitors Bureau, Alma, for all the hard work that they did. They really rallied. We started late as a community developing the agenda in the meetings, but in the end, there were a lot of great meetings. There was a lot of unity. I know the chamber and the LEDC and some of the private sector, the carriers, the customs brokers, did several meetings prior to the visit, so we were focused in supporting the city. We've since had some debriefing sessions after for suggestions that we're going to provide to the city management for future visits to Austin and to Washington. So thank you very much for the city for what you did. And thank you, committee, for those of us that were able to travel. And for those that weren't, you were there in spirit with us as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Gene. Great comments. And I guess thank you for everyone who went and attended the Washington trip and the Austin trip as well. I heard that one also really good, produced really good information. So ready to go on to item number 5. Discussion with possible action to propose a pilot program to charge an increased fee on all commercial vehicles at World Trade Bridge during southbound peak times 2 to 8 p.m. and any other matters incident there too. So I guess we'll start a discussion there. And Mr. Arturo might want to head the discussion.
I'll start this, but my motion was,
Yeah, in 20 minutes, 15 minutes.
so my motion,
No. I don't think so.
so the actual written that I did, because increase is a bad word, okay? The motion with possible action for the purpose of a pilot test to change a dynamic fee on all commercial trucks at World Trade Bridge during peak hours from 2 to 5. So the dynamic fee or dynamic pricing is also referred to as surge price, demand pricing, or time-based pricing. It's a strategy in which business sets flexible pricing for products or services based on market demands. So the peak hour is what we call the market demand, and that's where we have the issue on Mines Road. So we're saying if you do it flexible, you do it between 2 and 5, you upgrade, you increase the fee for World Trade, and so you'll scatter. If you can see, that's a study that was done by the World Trade on the Mexican side, which indicates that 90% of the cargo crosses between 8 in the morning and 8 at night. So there's like 4 or 5 hours that it basically is not being used. So if you really want to cross between 2 and 5, you're going to pay more. Like if you're in Disneyland, you want to go to the Fast Pass, you pay more if you really have an urgent. If not, you got to move the cargo, and that's basically what it is. I mean, you don't charge during holidays, you don't charge in weekends, because you don't have that increase of traffic during those things. That's why it's called a dynamic fee, not an increment. That's a bad word.
Yeah, I guess I'll second
really
your,
what
I'll
it is.
second your, I'll be second to your discussion, not second. It's, like we know, it's logistics, we move logistics, and many of the times that we release trucks it's not dependent on one party, it depends on many parties, from the customer side, from the customer broker, and from the transportation company having equipment ready. You know, there's many companies that, we move, 80 to 100 trailers a day, that you can't stop it from 8 to 2 and then stop for 5 hours and then continue to 5. You need that constant movement to go get another trailer in Mexico, take it out and come back, and be able to do, 80 to 100 trailers a day in 10 hours or 12 hours or whatnot. So I think it's a great idea if it's something that could work and could, it's not sensitive to any other things, and saying, hey, the infrastructure is there to do that. But I think on the logistics side of coordinating trucks and trying to stop and tell Mr. Fernandez, no, don't send me trucks from 2 to 5, hold them up. If it gets here at 2, I'm gonna hold it here and I'm gonna let it go at 6 p.m. for my warehouse, because the bridge is gonna be cheaper after 6. That creates, we have that third party type of truck. So I think there's, and then there's many other ways you could do it. We do have a problem on Mines Road, and we have to make sure we put everything on the table. But having a dynamic, and I guess it could work through volume highs going, 25%, and then down, depends on the volume per that day. But it's just very self-controlled, very not self-controlled on what every company can do on what time they send a shipment out to the bridge. So can't stop what we send. Maybe we could reverse it and give a cheaper rate. Anybody who said it before, give a little discount, and I'll probably hurry up, and somebody will hurry up to go get it faster, and they're gonna save $3 or $4 here. But,
Well, you're gonna save if you don't send it
but
between
you
2
can't,
and
but
5.
there's too much volume to stop it.
And how about congestion after
Correct.
those hours?
So I think, yeah,
Es una buena idea como comentaste, pero en mi experiencia no creo que influya, salvo que el costo se vaya a disparar. Los principales dos factores que miden la competitividad en el transporte son el tiempo y el precio. Si caemos en ese horario y nos aumenta el precio, afecta la competitividad. Y si por no caer en ese horario te mueves hasta después de las 8 o al siguiente día, pierdes competitividad. No hay muchas opciones. Ahora, si el incremento es bajo, pues lo único que va a suceder es que alguien va a pagar esa cantidad, pero no va a haber un beneficio, la fila seguirá igual. Otro grave problema va a ser la administración de ese costo, o sea, ¿quién es el responsable? El agente aduanal que te lo pidió a las 12 y en lo que vas enganchas, o el transportista que no lo tuvo a las meras 12, los tuvo a las 12:30, o el cliente que no te lo pasó a tiempo. Y todo eso en la práctica nos resta competitividad, ¿no? Parte del éxito en los negocios es lo sencillo, ¿no? Entre menos procesos, entre más fácil. En lo personal no creo que, aunque se menciona un programa piloto, pero siento que sería en contra de la competitividad y las filas seguirían igual.
Mr. Morris, have a comment?
I just wanted to mention, there is a Mines Road group that started to help alleviate some of the congestion that we're experiencing right now. And this is actually one of the ideas that was thrown out as a possibility. I don't remember who said it first, but the idea was that we need to give incentives to cross at different times or even at different bridges. Because we have Columbia, this is the port of Laredo. This is the port of entry for Laredo, Texas, and we have 2 bridges for our port. We recognize that we've got our partners on the Mexican side that have 2 different states and you're pushing your own state and that kind of stuff. But we really need to look at, I know that the governor of Nuevo León has said that he's willing to work to look at crossing things and make it interchangeable. I know during emergency times, we can switch things from bridge to bridge. So it's possible. To say it's not possible is not accurate. We can cross things. And so the idea that we presented to Ms. Limon was, can you do a study that says, you know what, can you give an incentive? Maybe make it cheaper at Columbia and more expensive at World Trade. But the idea is we don't want to lose revenue for the city. And so if we make it too cheap over and everybody moves over there, then they've lost revenue. It's not about that, but we need to find some way to incentivize using all of our facilities and not focusing all on one location at the World Trade Bridge. Because quite honestly, we know that we have congestion. We're looking for ways to facilitate that congestion. Being able to cross heavier trucks and have 1 truck instead of 2 crossing things, well, that's an option. Maybe it's not a valid option, but we considered it. We have an option to look at different fees for different times of day, just something that would incentivize moving at different times so we don't have it all crossing at one and have this big bottleneck trying to get down Mines Road, because that's where it's all going, right? So that's really the issue I think that we need to discuss. Not that we can't do it because Nuevo Laredo doesn't want to move it, or the idea is we have to look at options.
Yeah, I think the issue that we do have, Laredo has, in our logistics region, have 2 bridges. That's really important that we keep stating that, and that is correct. I'm pretty sure, even if it was still a different state, and the Columbia Bridge and the World Trade Bridge were 5 minutes apart, the Columbia Bridge would have been used at least 30% more. Doesn't matter, it's still Nuevo León. Right now the issue, you still got a 45-minute up and a 45-minute down, and fuel and everything is still an expense. I think even if they make it free, I don't know how many people would use it,
At the end of the day, it could
but
be cheaper.
It is, yeah, you can make it cheaper, but how much is
Still,
still,
the logistics are
still
more
distance on the
expensive.
fuel and all that. But it's always, we always have that bridge, and we always want to get closer to having it as a region. We have promoted as region, so for that sense, but Mr. Jerry, Mr. Guadarrama.
I have a question. Memory lane. What happened a couple of years ago when there was a tornado that damaged World Trade Bridge and it was closed?
They go to Colombia.
Everything went to Colombia. So what does that mean? That the drivers were given a pedimento from World Trade Bridge, but World Trade Bridge was closed. So Colombia, let's just say, pushed a button and was able to process.
Not really push the button. There's a lot of back end. It was a natural disaster.
It was an emergency.
Yeah.
It was an emergency. So
But
it's
they-
something that can be done
Yeah, and I'm,
in an emergency. Okay. Is this not an emergency? is my question. My number one question. Is the Mines Road traffic right now not an emergency? And if someone in here thinks it's not an emergency, you need to go with me to Mines Road at 5:30 PM on Friday afternoon. And I will show you and prove you in black and white, it's an emergency. We need to stop thinking like 1991. We need to think like the future. Push the button. Who do we need to bring? Who do we need to talk to?
The button could be pushed.
So that the driver can choose. If I have a driver, yo soy transportista.
So your cost, you're saying you'll give your customer the same cost through Laredo that through Colombia?
Yo soy transportista.
You'll give the customer the same
Sí.
cost?
Let me finish. So, yo soy transportista y yo ocupo que crucen mis embarques para México o de México para acá. Y si el operador le dan su pedimento y dice que es por Laredo y son las 4:30 de la tarde, está la fila hasta donde está, y le das la opción de que se pueda ir por Colombia y procesar y allá no hay fila, yo soy el transportista y a mí me dice, oye, ¿te urge tu carga o no? ¿La quieres o no? Que nos dejen a nosotros decidir si sí autorizamos que lo pase para allá, porque a mí me va a cobrar. A mí me va a cobrar el señor Fernández, con todo respeto. A mí me va a cobrar el transfer que sea. Y que nos dejen ser a nosotros los que elijamos.
No, that'll be the best possible solution, and as a region of what I've been saying, just a region, let anybody choose. And then the states have to fight on the thing, and the customs have to make that work. That'll be the greatest solution to be a stronger logistics port and not have
That
two
should be a
different-
pilot
Yes,
program.
But what I'm saying is, would it work? Because I'll do it in an emergency, but every day you won't alleviate the mines problem, because that truck from Colombia has to come through mines and go to Mile 8, go to Killam, go to that. So what I'm saying is, and also, not everybody will use it because it's a big extra expense. If it was next door to each other, they would use Colombia.
I feel that that will be a great pilot program. 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you are getting your trailer from Killam, and you're going to Nuevo Laredo, and you have a pedimento for World Trade Bridge on Friday at 4 PM. You can make a right and go to Colombia or wait in
I
line.
wanna wait 3 hours.
Exactly.
That's it.
That
The user,
is-
given the option to the
Yes.
user, it'll be a great competitive
That could be a
advantage.
great pilot program.
Great competitive advantage to our.
And
to
it
our
could be
port.
measured immediately, within a week, because Colombia could say, Mexican side, Colombia Customs could say, hey, last week we processed 100 pedimentos from Colombia and 50 from World Trade. They could tell you that
Oh, yeah, of
immediately.
course. No,
It's not an
that's-
issue that we wouldn't know if it worked or it didn't. And the more it works, maybe that's something that we keep. And it helps Mines Road.
That can be considered, obviously, I mean, but we have to keep in mind that over there, customs, in Mexican customs, is not that easy as pushing a button. I mean, there's a law, there's a complete law that states who crosses where, and a whole lot of, I mean, we can lobby for that, we can work for that, but it's not gonna happen as a pilot program, like, we're gonna decide.
That's a good idea to push and have it, and
Yeah.
probably take us.
Yeah, of course.
You know,
Of
1
course.
year or 8 years to make it work, but it's definitely a great idea. But I think the problem right now we're trying to do is, again, the Mines Road, how do you fix it? So, what idea? So I know Mr. Gaddis, I'm the.
Well, I just wanted to mention, and it's a good idea, but let's keep in mind also that most of the custom brokers have their license through Colombia and Nuevo Laredo. So you do tell the customer, you know what, there's a long line, do you want to go through Colombia? And the answer is, well, it's because it's further and you're gonna be more expensive. So once again, it's not cost.
We do have the option right now, we do it. Not the driver chooses, the customer
But the
chooses.
customer
But
doesn't
I
choose
think
it
Jerry
because
is
of
talking
cost.
more on having a Nuevo Laredo booth in Colombia.
Well, if you want to put it that way, no, yes.
I think he's going more toward,
But what Ed's are saying is that right now, like a lot of custom brokers that we have both, we operate and we tell the customer, hey, no, Laredo's three-hour line, do you want it to Colombia, $45 more or 60? No, that's not that urgent.
but how about if Jerry say, I pay for it?
No,
because-
and now we don't have the option right now for the driver to choose or the transportation company right now. At least the first level, the
So the
customer
argument would
level.
be, if it's not that urgent, don't cross it right there at 4 or 5 o'clock. Cross it at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Well, but he wants it at 10 PM to leave the yard to be in Monterrey at 8 AM. So there's logistics.
There's
things that
priorities
work,
and there's
but that
priorities.
we do try at least
Priority we're
to
dealing
have,
with is
at
the
least the first
congestion
right
we
now
have
is
on
the
our roads.
customer choose. what you want, but not all of them choose Colombia.
Let Carlos talk, he's got.
Hey.
No, no,
Aquí no hay que levantar la mano, hay que hablar primero. Sí coincido que tener esa oportunidad ayuda, pero también sé que no es tan fácil la parte mexicana. Mas, sin embargo, eso ya lo puede decir la gente aduanal. Ustedes sí lo pueden decidir, no tanto nosotros, pero la gente aduanal puede decir a las 3 de la tarde lo mando todo por allá o antes de generar un pedimento voy a revisar cómo está la fila. Y digo esto porque eso de aprovechar los horarios, los incentivos o las penalidades de que te cueste más, pues ha sido el tema desde hace muchos años. Pero hay una realidad que es las características de la logística o algo que hace que esos picos que mostraba ahorita Arturo en la gráfica estén en ciertos horarios. Para nosotros los transportistas no hay mejor incentivo que hacer un cruce sin fila. Ese es el mejor incentivo y ya lo tenemos. Si no lo aprovechamos, no es porque no nos dé un beneficio o porque simple y sencillamente no queramos hacerlo. Son muchos los factores. Entra el exportador, entra el agente aduanal, entra la naturaleza de la logística, que en la mañana el 99% y el otro 1% a lo mejor también son camiones de empresas mexicanas, las que hacen el cruce internacional. Y esas tienden a dormir en Nuevo Laredo. Pues digo, duermen en Nuevo Laredo, aquí no tienen normalmente dónde. En fin, son una serie de cosas que hacen que así esté la fila.
Otro punto importante es los horarios de oficina. Son de 9 a 6 de la tarde, quieres llegar antes de las... La oficina. Cruzas a las 8, estar a las 9 y quieres salir a las 6 de la tarde para no pagar overtime. Entonces, eso hace que también el pico sea entre las 9 y las 6 de la tarde, o 8 de la noche que está ahí.
Just Mines Road, what time does it start getting congested?
For-
No, not on Fridays.
4, every day by 4 o'clock.
It
because
starts
of
at 4
school.
o'clock, so
On the
2,
eastbound.
1, 2, 3 is still good? Normal?
It's still, I mean, decent, but once school's out, which is 3:30, 3:45,
So that's what.
from there until 7, 8 o'clock, it's.
But the eastbound is when it backs up, then northbound is 11 o'clock.
Our peak hours are 2 to 8
Yeah, so
for southbound.
southbound, okay, so northbound,
So when it's coming northbound down Mines Road, it starts at 10 o'clock.
AM?
Oh, yeah.
To get
11
past?
o'clock, 12 o'clock, I'll even go home for lunch because I can't get through the traffic. So it's this way and then it's this way.
Okay, so there's two different scenarios.
Yeah.
So, you know, the other thing that we have, I don't know how much, and we do have on last meeting, we talked about doing a visit to the traffic department and understand how they measure the traffic, because remember, you know, I don't know if it's a solution or not, we have $100 and some thousand, Mr. Richards, how much is it that we've collected from insufficient funds?
It's on your paper.
The item or?
Insufficient funds, $156,900.
That's what I'm saying, $156,000. You know, applying that to, is, because Mines Road on the police officers and on the signals, does that need money? Is there a way to apply that money towards that? And if it gets it better, it manages traffic better, even 10% or 15%, bring those funds there, would that be a quick fix? You know, I'm saying, it's not gonna fix 100% of the problem, but would that fix 1 hour, so starting the traffic jam at 5 instead of 4, and we put 2 extra police officers, or work the lights, I don't know, that's something that our traffic department, we say, we have a $150,000 budget, what can you do with it? A year?
Can I add?
Yes.
Okay, so, traffic has admitted, because we had an issue where with the timing of the lights, and we've already gotten to the bottom that the city controls that. And then we had gotten to the bottom of the fact that it's been years since those lights were timed. So we are retiming the lights, and I know, Ms. Cabello, you correct me if I'm wrong, but we're moving forward, so the city is having all the lights retimed. The request was there for the police officers who have been stationed there, that we approved overtime for them, to manually override, which they have been doing. So they'll manually override the light to let more, I think there's still room for improvement on that process. But I wanted to kind of add where I think Mr. Dominguez was coming from as the District 7 representative, is just here to speak on behalf of the residential, right? Because here we have residential mixed in. So people are going to work and school from 8 to 9 in the morning, 7 to 9 in the morning. So you have school buses that are taking up a lot of, like they're almost the same thing as a truck. And then you have parents that are trying to get to work. And so that adds a lot of traffic during those peak hours, right? 7 to 8:30, 9 o'clock. And if you look at that, I want to go back to that chart because I think that's good. It shows that there's a lot of activity at 9 o'clock. So there's a lot of trucks and there's a lot of residential movement between, 7 to 9, in the morning there. But then I also wanted to point out that at noon, it looks like everybody goes to lunch. Is there any way that maybe we could work on having a more evenly distributed spread and maybe not have everybody take lunch at noon? Maybe, not to tell you all how to run your business, but I'm just saying, like, from what I'm seeing here, it looks like noon it drops because I'm assuming people go to lunch, and then at 1 o'clock it spikes back up. So if we could distribute out the times and the crossing times more, I think it would help. And then, real quick, between 2 o'clock to 5 or 6, that's when you start to see like the elementary schools at Muller get out. And the fact that we don't have the River Road is a problem because you have to come through Killam or Riverbank to get to Muller Elementary. There's no back way to get there. So you have to come on Mines Road to get to Muller Elementary. And that causes a lot of traffic. And that starts releasing, they start releasing like at 2. The line starts backing up around 2. So at 2 o'clock, there's a lot of residential and industrial. Then the high school gets out around 4:30, and then you start to see all the United High School because we don't have a high school on Mines Road. So
I'm gonna
I
interrupt you
think,
really quick, just a motion to extend the meeting for 30 more minutes.
Second.
Aye. Thank you.
so I'm just adding that component to the conversation because you've got the high school and then you've got the elementary school. And because we don't have a high school on Mines Road and because we only have Muller Elementary there, that's what's really kind of competing with you all and causing issues with you all. And another thing that we've identified is the fact that Mines Road traffic is trying to merge onto the loop to get on to Mexico to go into World Trade. So a lot of the drivers see the Mines Road line as like cutting. So we're trying to see if maybe we can encourage everybody to make a line through the loop instead of trying to get drivers to let you all in through Mines Road because they're blocking all the industrial activity by forming a line on Mines Road.
Thank you, Ms.
So
Perez.
add that.
And then just this diagram, this is from Mexico, and I don't know what year it is. And I read it says northbound study from Mexico, so it's
December 21st.
21st, so it's a little old, and I don't know how the data.
December 2021.
21st,
2021.
yes, so 2
So it's
years
fresh,
ago.
5 years.
2 years ago.
10, yeah, it's obsolete,
But I'm saying is, the 12 o'clock, that's for northbound,
that's northbound.
yeah. Mexico, lunch in Mexico is from 2 to 4, so that 12 o'clock dip, I don't know what's going on, it's weird. I know that for northbound, everybody's formed in the morning, because all the exports coming in that stay from the day behind, so they're all formed at 8, 9, 10, just to be able to cross, and then maybe it slows down, but I never seen the bridge empty from 12 or 1 p.m. No está vacío el puente de exportación. It probably starts flowing a little better because all that, what's it called? The trucks that were there for 1 hour, 2 hours without moving because they were forming since they start forming at 7 a.m. and the bridge opens at 8 or something like that. The New Mexico.
7. They open at 7.
Okay, they form at 6. So form especially on Mondays, or on Mondays, not really, mostly on the other days.
7 northbound, and
Maybe
then we
Customs
open at
hasn't
8
answered
southbound.
So I think we would check I don't think the times really match with what we live as a customs broker, as a carrier, and the lunchtime doesn't make sense. On the southbound, which also creates work, I think that starts around 2 o'clock, whenever a lot of the movement starts shipping. But if you see, there's a lot of movement going on between 9 and 12, and that's the biggest incentive to us as carriers. There's no line. Mr. Fernandez at 9 a.m., between 9 and 10 already has 20 trucks in my yard here to start moving it southbound, and we start moving, but we need 9 to 8 PM, we need those 10 hours to move 100 trucks out there every day. So I think there's a lot, it does concentrate on the 2 to 5 because of paperwork and whatnot. But going back, I think we should just check, what other solutions can we have as traffic that we could make a quick win right now?
The only thing I can say, if we keep on doing the same thing, we do it, don't expect a different outcome.
I understand, but we need to come up with real solutions.
Sí, yo quiero comentar algo. Hay que ver el problema micro y macro. Así como se están organizando y las ideas para ir a Washington, D.C., también hay que empujar con la aduana de México. O sea, el comité, reunir a la gente importante, tener esa participación y esa voz en México para encargado de aduanas, pues yo quiero apretar el A y el B, ¿verdad? Yo quiero tener Nuevo Laredo, quiero tener Colombia. Sabemos que hay división de Estado, hay división de poderes, hay el mismo central de aduanas cambia cada rato, pero también tener en mente esa viabilidad y de que la ciudad tenga ya esa idea binacional, no nada más estancarnos en lo micro. Sí podemos cambiar los semáforos y podemos hacer algo interno, ¿verdad? Pero ya tener la mentalidad de que ya somos una ciudad, pero con una conectividad de todo México y que podemos alcanzar esa parte de ir y organizarnos todos para, hoy aduana, pues tengo una emergencia, ¿verdad? Somos todos estos representantes y no nada más quedarnos con esa idea de que podemos hacer algo micro, pero no, tenemos el alcance de hacer algo más. Esa es mi parte.
And I want a motion also to include Mr. Fernandez and Mr. Cervantes as present. We had them absent.
I have a question. En lo que te refieres, Ricardo, ¿verdad? Tener esa comunicación y coordinación binacional. En la semana que entra está la junta de la Binational Bridges and Border Crossings Group meeting in Las Cruces, New Mexico. Would that be a platform to discuss this type of request? Could it be
We will
done
be going to
there?
that, so maybe
We're
one of you
going
would
to
like to
that
go.
meeting.
Always a great
Is
idea to
that
put on the table.
something that we could kind of talk about there? Or do you feel we need to set up like a different binational meeting?
Sí, depende de quién va a asistir, ¿verdad?
¿Quién tomó la
quién va a hacer?
decisión cuando fue el desastre de World Trade Bridge? ¿Quién decidió en el lado mexicano, sí, procésalo por Colombia lo de World Trade?
Autoridades.
Aduanas, ¿no?
Bueno, pues esa es la gente con la que nos tenemos que acercar y acercarnos como grupo, como ciudad. No le vas a quitar nada a ninguna aduana. ¿Qué va a pasar si 100 camiones dejan de irse por World Trade y se van a Colombia? No le va a pasar nada. ¿Sabes qué va a pasar? Va a haber más flujo. Y los que se quieran ir a la fila, hay operadores de transfer que te garantizo que le dices, oye, él empezó a las 7 de la mañana y le dices a las 8 de la noche, te avientas otro y ve la fila y dice, no, gracias, mañana vengo. Pero si la misma fila ya está más cortita, ellos mismos, es motivación. ¿Qué pasó con lo de los vacíos? No, que vamos a perder dinero. No perdieron un 5 y están ganando más dinero que nunca. O sea, es una realidad.
Si me permite, yo estoy totalmente de acuerdo que hay que impulsar the region, la región, hay que impulsarla. Lo de los vacíos, muy buena idea. Esto sería una muy buena idea. Estoy siendo realista. No va a ser sencillo. Si lo logramos, nos va a tomar muchos años porque hay que hacer mucha labor en México y lo podemos hacer. Pero eso es un asunto nacional en México que se tiene que manejar a nivel federal. Lo comentamos, hay que hacer unos viajes a México como ciudad, como grupo, como Puerto de Laredo. Estoy totalmente de acuerdo por eso. Mi otro comentario también, estoy de acuerdo con Carlos, creo que no hay que sobreregular las cosas, la logística tiene sus horarios, no los vamos a cambiar cobrando un poquito más, cobrando un poquito menos. Aquí hay que reconocer que es un problema de infraestructura que tenemos de este lado. Las minas, es una pregunta que quiero terminar haciendo esta pregunta. ¿Cuándo va a quedar? ¿Va a funcionar? ¿Se va a poder hacer más grande? ¿Vamos a hacer otro camino por otro lado? ¿Qué va a pasar? Porque ahí es donde resolvemos el problema de las minas. no creo que poniendo más, cobrando más en ciertas horas. Son buenas ideas y se pueden considerar, pero creo que sobre regular no es lo que nos
Pero
va
los vacíos
a
era
sacar
una
de-
mala idea, los vacíos era una mala idea.
¿Era una
Que
mala idea?
resulta-
A mí me pareció siempre muy buena.
Para uno estaba dividido
A
el
mí me
tema
pa-
el que pagara.
a mí me pareció
Pero
siempre
nos
buenísima
ha
idea.
ayudado, hay unos ha ayudado y otros perjudicado, como todo.
Y como todo, el 4-5 a 1 se les hace mala idea porque está en otro lado. A mí me parece todo buena idea. Todo lo que fortalezca la región, Colombia, Laredo, 4-5, donde sea, es una buena idea.
Mientras haya infraestructura, estoy de acuerdo contigo.
Pues mira, agregando al comentario, estamos hablando mucho de tomar una acción y igual me sumo al comentario, no de que estemos en contra de moverle a las reglas de la aduana mexicana, pero hay que ser realista, no va a ser fácil. Si se logra, fabuloso, sería un éxito.
pero ya viene la
Pero
carta,
también
la
podemos
deuda.
pensar, también
nada que ver.
podemos pensar en otras cosas, como lo está diciendo. A ver, Chaco, espérame.
Está cerquita.
A ver, bueno, nuevamente, la opción de que la aduana mexicana haga ese cambio definitivamente sería mucha ayuda y de que se intente,
Y para el
es
tráfico
correcto.
y para muchas cosas.
Para muchas cosas,
Claro.
pero hay que ser realista, tampoco es lo más fácil. También hay otras cosas que se pueden hacer, la que dice Rodolfo, el tema de la infraestructura, cómo va lo de las minas, cómo van lo de los otros caminos. Pero además también se puede hacer concentrar todos los recursos en ese horario. Algo que es un hecho, que es una realidad, es que la capacidad de los puentes aumenta o disminuye mucho en relación a la voluntad de los que lo operan. Lo de los vacíos, yo siempre lo dije, el beneficio de que se agilizó el tráfico por el World Trade no fue tanto el efecto de los vacíos que se mandaron para allá, fue más el efecto de que CBP nos quiso comprobar. Me apoyan mandando por allá estos vacíos y yo trabajo más rápido. Y eso lo vivimos con mucha frecuencia. Hay una fila muy larga por muchas horas, y de pronto se mueve rapidísimo. Algo hacen eso y sobre todo hacia el norte, northbound. Entonces, igual, si es una emergencia, también podemos aplicar un botón y hablar con las autoridades, con los policías que dirijan con más agilidad o con más asertividad el tráfico, y a los que operan los puentes, en este caso si es hacia México, que estén todos los módulos, que esté un porcentaje mayor de empleados en ese momento para que la fila fluya. Digo, hay varias cosas que se pueden hacer.
Nada más para comentarles en lo que mencionó ahorita, que hay filas y luego de repente se limpia o se procesa más rápido. Sí tenemos un grupo en WhatsApp que es la ciudad, aduanas. Ahora se encargan de fideicomiso ahí en World Trade y CBP. Así como yo les mando a Consuelo, ¿verdad? Consuelo, ¿qué está pasando? Tenemos filas, el tráfico no se mueve. Lo estamos trabajando, Lick, y me lo limpian. Lo están haciendo igual ellos. Lick le mandan a Javi Vázquez. Tenemos kilómetros de fila. Lo reviso y no sé qué pasa, pero lo procesan. Tenemos lo que no teníamos antes, esa comunicación que nos ayuda a ambos lados, a moverlo hacia México y a moverlo hacia los Estados Unidos. Por ahorita es lo que nos ha dado fruto en esa comunicación y todos ponen de su parte para hacer lo posible por eliminar las líneas o procesarlas más rápido. Pero en cuenta, en lo que limpian, se congestiona más todo Mines, porque de procesarlo más coordinadito, avientan más en un poco tiempo y quizás también complique las cosas en Mines. Pero pues uno con otro, ¿cómo le hacemos, verdad? Queremos procesar rápido, pero pues al mismo tiempo quizás se congestiona Mines en lo que CBP procesa más Si abren las 15 estaciones, no sé qué hacen, pero yo sé que mandan pedir y de poco veo las cámaras y se limpia.
Gracias, thank you, Ms. Limon.
If I may, just a little bit, to kind of recap a little bit, because we covered a whole bunch of stuff. But the idea is that with Mines Road, we know we have congestion. We know we need some fixes. We know that some of those fixes are a medium-term thing with the Vallecillo project, with Hachar. Those are 5 years down the road, right? We can't wait 5 years for those things. We had to do something now. And so that's what we're looking at is the immediate short-term fixes. What can we do to help alleviate some of this? We've talked about the police officers doing the controls, and all those things are working fairly well. We're talking about rerouting some stuff. But right now, what's before us is the idea that if we move some of the traffic to Columbia and give that as an option, would that work? Initially, you all said, well, it's just too much cost because you got to go 17 out, 17 back. And then it came, well, it's a question with Mexican Customs because they had to whatever. I don't think it's, if you talk to Carlos, I've talked to him before on this, really, they want to go where there's no lines. The drivers want to go where there's no lines. You know, if it costs them 30 miles extra, but they're crossing 5 or 6 loads per day instead of 1 or 2, they're going to go there. And you can probably negotiate with them that they're not going to charge you that much extra because they get more money, more volume, and all the stuff that they're crossing. But the idea is, can we incentivize, can we propose this pilot to give, not an increased rate, what'd you call it?
A dynamic fee.
A dynamic fee that for this period of time. And that's really what we have to, we got to get back to. That's the question we're addressing here, and can we do that or not? Should we do that?
Well, as far as a dynamic fee, I check with legal, and it is a rate increase, or it is a toll, and it requires an ordinance.
But, I mean, it goes up, but then it comes down.
Okay?
That's why.
The ordinance, it's like to set an ordinance, and then to bring it back down,
It's a
legal suggested that we do not do a pilot, that because it is an ordinance.
Right. I don't think we want to be the, to be lifting wages.
Going down, can you tell them the credit and the Estrada Hinojosa and all that rating with the city on the forecast of the income, just so that when you want to lower prices, it affects that?
So, bond rating agencies look at Bridge very carefully because they do biannual reviews of how we're doing traffic-wise. And so one of the things that is frowned upon in reducing a fee permanently could be a potential,
Loss of competition.
well, it's a loss of revenue, right? Because they're looking at, but it's a potential alert to other investors on what could happen. It's not necessarily a downgrade, but it's a potential alert for them to say, hey, you know what? There's something going on. Why is it happening? Because Laredo is the lead in industry. I mean, largest inland port, you all know that. And so they do look, they're always looking at how Laredo is doing and how we should be doing. And I'm not sure if that's the answer or what you were wanting to
I thought I had
say.
heard something about the credit rating, that it goes down.
It could potentially go down. I know that we would be on a credit alert if things go down and revenues start coming down. Because we do have to think of a couple of other things. Bringing down revenues, what's gonna happen with a potential Bridge 4-5, right? And so we're trying to build up eventually to ensure that we're able to ensure the debt service for however the structure of 4-5 occurs with the county and the city and the private entity.
But I'm sorry, but that's a key word. If we bring down revenue,
Right.
but how about if we increase the revenue?
Oh, they'll love
because
it.
when
With
we
lower
lower
rates.
the price, we cross more shipments. I mean, that could not decrease the revenue.
Yes, most definitely would. The only thing is that it's going to have to be permanent. What happens with the city, there's city red tape, and you all have heard it before. So we have to go through an ordinance, and it comes through a public hearing. People come in, talk, yes or no. After the first reading, it takes 60 days to permanently set a fee. So if the first reading goes, that there's a final, but there's a 60-day period, and then it gets enforced. It's a permanent fee if it works or doesn't work. It doesn't matter. What legal's telling us is there's no such thing as a pilot. Let's see if it works, and then if it doesn't work, let's remove it. So then by the same process, right, let's say it doesn't work the revenues start going down, let's pretend they go down. Again, we have to come back with another ordinance, do a public hearing, have public comment, and then wait another 60 days to be able to undo it. That's the only, it's a procedural thing. And so we're running the risk. If it's more money, more power to the industry, more power to the city of Laredo and everything that comes to it. All I think that Yvette's trying to tell you is it's a permanent thing, not a pilot.
So my last question, is your system capable of doing a dynamic fee, an hourly rate increase, and then after it goes down again?
Yeah, they'll
The system
set
can
the
do
table
that.
and say, at 2 o'clock, you're gonna charge this.
And then
But-
at 5, it goes back
And
to
then at
normal?
5, at 6, at 8,
That
whenever it goes back
That
down,
was
but
my
yes.
question, thank you.
Yes, I checked with Transcorp, and it's like, okay, they're talking about this, could it be done? It's like, yes, it can be done.
I'm guessing Mr. Cabello's talking about is kind of like a Wall Street looking at us as a company. They see lowered prices, something's wrong in your organization, and you don't make up and double your revenue, something's not good, and that's kind of where
The point, though, the point, we're not gonna lose revenue. We still got 20,000 trucks a day crossing our bridges, 10,000 each way, and that's only gonna get more.
So
We're not gonna
how
lose
do we
revenue.
guarantee that, though? How do we know that that's going to happen?
Well, so that we
Where's
don't-
your
so
study
that
for
we
that?
don't allow the congestion to continue so long that people go to other ports.
Well, I think one of the things that we all do agree on is that hiring the price by a little bit or lowering the price a little bit, it's not gonna move the logistics that we currently have. And we don't believe with the facts that we have now that it's gonna change the congestion in Mines Road. The cutoff time, you're gonna miss it, but now you're gonna pay $5 more, $5 less, unless, which I don't think we'll ever do, is raise it by $100 and, like we did with the fees, we raised them 25 and they still keep doing it. And now we raised it to 50 I'm talking about the U-turns. Raising it a $5 or $10 extra toll, I don't know, but now it's gonna be who's gonna pay for it, and that's gonna create a lot of chaos.
It has to be an incentive. $5 is not an incentive to anybody. It has to be an incentive to say, you know what, we encourage you to either cross at an earlier time or later time, or cross another bridge. We have 2 bridges, we have options for it. And if there's no lines over here, and you're making a congestion over here, we'll just encourage them some way to go over to the other bridge. That's what we're suggesting, not insisting.
Just a question, why do we cross through Laredo instead of Columbia? I mean, the custom brokers here. Why? Why do we do it?
I think it's a thing of cost. At the end, I cross 80% to Colombia, but customer approved, and they approved, and that's their reason, and hazmat and whatever it has to do.
Okay.
But a lot of people choose
Okay,
rates.
so we need, cost is one of the factors, definitely. We need to balance out that cost. If not, we're not gonna do
This
it.
dynamic fee is not something that was invented or here. I mean, it's done at several places. London did it, it has a toll road, they increased it at
But
certain
that's for
hours.
cars.
And it started, but I mean, it's something that they did, it's something that's worked in other cities.
And the thing in a lot of cities in the US, it does exist. On the toll roads by cars, and you make that decision, you as a person, if you wanna get there and you're racing to 2 o'clock, you're 158. But I know it's like Mr. Fernandez said, there's lots of parties involved. Hell, make a motion if you want to, we can vote it out. It's a recommendation. It's not gonna pass in cities, but do we wanna set a precedent that the POE is trying to increment tolls when you're one of the ones that always been fighting and coming up with this committee, so the city won't go and increment tolls like they've done in the past. And right now, we're trying to present an increase in tolls.
An issue that we have.
Well, an issue is Mines Road, so I think the Mines Road, we shouldn't take it off the table, we should keep analyzing what we could do. And with Ms. Perez and the Times and the people that actually travel that, we know right now that the problem is that, at least southbound, 3:30 or 4 PM, how can we move it to start it at 5? Is bringing more cops, is investing in the lights. That's a quick fix, that's not gonna fix the problem for the next 3-5 years, but one of our solutions is the expansion of it, that's coming in 3 to 5 years. But for now, what can we actually do that will not increment and not lose competitiveness as we currently are? And we have $150,000 and we apply that, that's a 6-8 month thing, or probably, 8 months maybe?
It started April of 2022, like mid-April
so probably 10 months, oh, yeah, 12 months. So how much more, and now that we picked it up at 50, how much more can we bring in? So that's, if that money, can that do a quick fix? Even if it could improve 1 hour, just congestion to start at 5 instead of 4. That's a fix. Can we
Y
do
una
it?
disculpa,
Hizo muy interesante la pregunta que hiciste. ¿Por qué los agentes aduanales en esos horarios no utilizan Colombia? Y yo haría otra pregunta. ¿Y por qué nosotros los transportistas preferimos cobrar $40 más por Colombia o $40 menos por Nuevo Laredo, aunque haya fila? Hay cosas que no son de escritorio, hay cosas que te lo da la logística. A lo mejor algunas son difíciles de explicar. Es como el agua, busca el mejor camino. Y si ustedes los agentes aduanales no están tomando esa decisión de cuando hay fila utilizar Colombia, y nosotros los transportistas no estamos tomando la decisión de cobrar menos por Colombia cuando hay fila, pues por algo será. Algo hay.
Y una disculpa ahorita que estabas hablando, le dije, pues ahí viene la NAM aquí en Nuevo Laredo, ahí arreglan lo del módulo. Y
No, de volada.
No tiene nada que ver, o sea, puedes decir a mí, o sea, no tiene que venir a Laredo para ir a plantear el tema que comentamos.
Sí, pero lo vas a tener aquí cerquita.
I guess to go back and also complete what we're saying is, yes, that's an issue that we put on the table and it can take 1 year or 5 years to fix. As having the Nuevo Laredo and Colombia customs customs as one, or be able to use, that's a great idea. I don't think we'll take off the table. We could go back with our customs broker, Mexican customs brokers, and see how long it takes to push it. It could be a year, it could be 5 years, whatever it is. We won't take it off the table, at least on our side. We could push it, but well, I'm sorry to. Next 2 months, we're not going to come back with an answer, the solution. But it's always going to be there, and it's a good idea to have, and that's going to definitely make us more competitive in the long run. So I don't know if somebody else wants to add something, or how can we make something to move this?
Well, first, I just want to add that I love the dialogue. I love watching you all go back and forth on these issues. But going back to Mr. Maldonado's point, I think it would be a great idea for us to bring representative from the 2 state governments to the table. And I don't know if that's going to be in New Mexico or we can do it here also, but I think getting them to the table and then maybe bring them here for a meeting or have a special meeting with you all, but have that discussion with them to see, to treat, I guess, emergency situations where maybe there's like really bad congestion. And when you guys were talking about the trucks, and your explanation really brought to light or reminded me of issues that we're having on Mines Road, where sometimes trucks have broken in half. And I wonder, how does that happen? So I'm wondering if maybe they like overload them to try to pass more and then the truck can't handle it or something. But we do have situations where Mines Road, all of a sudden a truck will break in half or something, and then it does become an emergency situation because you literally cannot move. There's nowhere to go and you're stuck there. So in those situations, it would be nice to have the option to turn around and go to Colombia instead of being stuck waiting to get to World Trade because you have no option. And so it would be nice to have that discussion with our counterparts in Mexico and with the relationships that we have. But and I think that what I'm reading the room is that we don't want to charge more. I think we floated the idea of giving a discount at Columbia for using that bridge, which I'm not exactly sure where we stood on that option, but I mean, we could either do that or we could incentivize the other way. But I think that if we could all just kind of agree that there's certain times where the more you send the trucks out, it's gonna, it's causing an issue, and just trying to disperse some of that movement throughout the day a little bit more. I know that you brought up the issue of not wanting to pay overtime, but I don't know, maybe work out something with the schedules to have like afternoon shifts or something like that. I don't know if that would work for you all, but we're gonna try to eliminate that access point so that Mines Road doesn't become a parking lot and see if that helps. But I know there's a solution out there. I think that this is a good step forward to try to figure it out. So that's my.
Thank you, Ms. Perez.
Thank you.
Chairman, I know we're going to very late notice Las Cruces on Monday and returning back Tuesday. Very late notice. We would like to extend an invitation to at least one individual who would volunteer going with us to see.
What are the dates, I'm sorry?
It's Monday and Tuesday. And
This,
Travel Monday, the meeting's Tuesday morning. It's a half-day meeting only because all the agencies, you have SRE, SCT, TxDOT, CBP, everybody, like, they meet privately after the presentations. And this is the BBBXG East, which includes Texas and New Mexico.
Oh, BB what, sorry?
BBB is the Binational Bridges and Border Crossings Group Meeting. The acronym is BBBXG.
can you email us that, so we can go?
You could check out and see, and it starts Tuesday at 8?
Tuesday, half a day,
8 to 2, something
8
like that?
to
or-
12, pretty much, Las
Las
Cruces.
Cruces.
Make a motion, we send a chair.
we're you'd have to travel into El
You guys
Paso.
sit down? No, go. I could try to go, that's what I was writing down, because I may be able to go, but if it's, I would like the information I got. Wife's birthday's on Wednesday, so I need to make special arrangements. That's what I'm asking on the day.
Yeah, we got a flight, it was hard to get a flight to Las Cruces, so we got a flight from
El Paso.
Laredo to Houston to El Paso.
That's 30 minutes to.
And then we're gonna ride along with Sid Milky and his.
How many people from Laredo are going now?
Rayo and I and whoever from you all.
I might go. If you give me the information, I might go.
Oh, we're gonna hitch a ride because I wasn't able to, I guess everybody's doing the same thing. I wasn't able to get a car to drive to Las Cruces, so we're gonna ride along with Sid, so.
Well, thank you very much.
Send you all the information.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Limon. Send the information, then we'll see if I can make a combination.
Arrange it to see what we can do. Make-
So I'd like to head over to item number 6 and quickly comment that numbers did go down. I see report the February numbers without going into much detail because we have 3 minutes. So numbers did go down. And
That is correct. Numbers have gone down for World Trade Bridge. December, we had 416 U-turns, January 318, February we've hit 307 total U-turns. That is for December, total number of accounts 278, January 223, February 217. So that number has slowly gone down a little. Like we talked about a few minutes ago, total revenue we received with World Trade Bridge from April of 2022, mid-month to present time, end of February, $156,965.
plus 11,000 Colombia.
That is correct.
So in total, almost close to $170,000 in revenue for that.
And to provide you an update, following your recommendation, Monday, I presented the public hearing introductory ordinance to increase the insufficient fund fee from $25 to $50 plus a per axle fee. It was approved. The final reading will go on the agenda for April 2nd, that first Monday. And then it becomes effective after publication because it is a fee. As soon as we publicize it in the paper, then it'll become effective immediately after the publication. So I know, Mr. Fernandez, thank you. I know you did send a notice advising the customers to monitor their accounts and to be prepared that the fee was possibly going to go up, and it will be. So hopefully that lowers the numbers even more. But based on you all's recommendation, I did take it to council and it was approved, so.
Thank you, Mr. Mon.
Well, the city secretary said it was, since it was a fee.
Oh,
it's a fee. It takes effect immediately after publication. So whenever we publicize it in the paper, the day after, we can start implementing the fee. So if it goes to council on Monday, it should be publicized sometime that week. And giving the customers, we're gonna start sending mass emails and do that again. Implementing to start charging the $50 April 10th.
What was approved?
$50?
But when was?
Monday.
Last Monday.
It was
Needs a final reading.
right, it was the public hearing introductory ordinance was approved Monday. The final reading will go before council on Monday, April 2nd or 3rd, the first Monday of the month.
I'm sorry, make a motion to extend the meeting 10 more minutes.
Right?
All those in favor?
All right,
Thank you.
okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Moore.
Now, Ms. Reyes will provide you the numbers for the auto replenish and,
Just real quick to provide the update on the auto replenish accounts. As y'all recall, last month, we had 4,876. I'm happy to announce that we got 300 more new accounts. Unfortunately, they're more non-commercial than commercial. Out of the 4,795 commercial that we have 1,116 that are on the auto replenish. The other 13,151 accounts that we have, 4,058 are non-commercial. Okay, but yes, we are emphasizing, we're telling the newcomers to please sign up for the auto replenish, and yes, they are. We are having a little bit more difficulties with the existing accounts, and again, the issues that we have is the people that have more or deposit more money, well, those, they don't have to be an auto replenish. We usually have, problems with people that deposit small amounts. That's why we have the insufficient funds, but we are getting more and more. We're getting more new accounts, and we are not enforcing, but yes, we are trying to get them in the auto replenish so we can have less insufficient funds.
I think once we increase to $50 and then together push that marketing of the replenish to avoid those, like mentioned together, to avoid the $50, apply for auto replenish, hopefully gives a little kick up.
But
Okay,
it's
thank you
still-
very much.
It's still not mandatory.
No, not mandatory, but $50 for, perfect. Thank you very much. Is it for the discussion? We'll go to other business, item number 6, other business. Nothing at all? Sí.
Referente a el uso de los 4 nuevos carriles del Fast Lane, que fue una gran inversión, es muy importante lo que se hizo, pero para aprovecharlo necesitamos empujar todos la certificación de las empresas. Algo comentaba acá Joe, y desde el punto de vista del transporte sentimos que la autoridad está muy limitada. Uno de los problemas pues, es que no quieren cruzar a México. Bueno, pues buscar una solución, ¿verdad? Si no va a ser en México, que sea de este lado. Es decir, hay que verlo como una necesidad, porque de lo contrario, pues no aprovechamos las inversiones que hacemos. Pero no nada más es que no quieran cruzar, no puedan o no tengan autorizado cruzar a México. Desde un principio ha sido muy lento el certificarte en CityPads. Cuando hablas con ellos hay pocos agentes, tú tienes la necesidad y te dan una fecha muchos meses después. Entonces creo que sería una buena acción de este comité que hiciéramos alguna acción que ayude a tener un mejor servicio de certificación de empresas CityPad. Lo que decías ahorita, Milo, la empresa es la que se certifica CityPad y como beneficio tienes el Fast Lane. Como empresa, con la certificación ya lo puedes utilizar, pero hay otros 2 requisitos: que el cliente, el exportador, también esté certificado CityPad y que el operador tenga la certificación Fast Lane, su tarjeta.
Perfecto. Okay.
Gracias. The only thing here, just to add to that, they're going to Chihuahua and they're going to Nuevo León to certify. They're not going to Tamaulipas. And that's basically, we're saying, at least you do the borders for the transfer companies and then again, that's an issue.
Y para no atorarnos en eso, porque es un tema de seguridad, tal vez dirán, y no vamos a ir, bueno, pues una opción, Si no van a ir, se entiende, pero que las auditorías, a mí en alguna ocasión me tocó una revisión del lado americano, pero creo que ahorita no lo están haciendo. Yo,
Es algo que
pues,
comentaba JD, que le comentaron de Citipal, que están pidiendo apoyo de $3 millones que les den para incrementar su personal e incluir viajes y más agentes para ese mismo tema. Entonces lo trae en la manga ya aquí nuestro compañero.
Pero lo comenté en inglés, no te ves.
sí, no, pues no te...
Pero lo que comentaba el señor Fernández,
no lo
maybe
hablas
you need a letter
nada
of
claro.
support, if you need a letter of support, JD, and that helps, where your contact is.
It'll help me out.
A POA, letter from the city.
Because Henry stepped up to the plate and said, hey, I'm appropriation, so I'm hoping that he, you know, he helps us out. That's where we're, but at the same time, you know, how and not to say anything bad about the government, but they like to move money where they want to go instead of where we need it.
Hay manera, señor Fernández, de que pudiera dar una lista de, hay tantos transportistas listos para unirse al programa, o sea, no, sin nombres a lo mejor.
Sí.
Si
tenerlo
apruebas,
así, sí.
si apruebas en Nuevo Laredo, tenemos 1, tenemos 20, tenemos, a lo mejor eso nos ayudaría mucho cuando nos
It would help me out a
acerquemos
lot
con-
because I could send it directly to the director and he'll, perdón, le puedo mandar directamente al director y Manny Garza y él ahorita me está haciendo caso. Le puedo mandar lo que...
Buena idea.
A lo mejor yo lo puedo también hacer con nuestros asociados y usted también,
Sí.
a ver qué tantas empresas
Sacar una
actualmente
lista, claro que sí se
se
puede.
quieren meter al
sí.
programa y ya están listos para...
Que quede en la agenda ahí en la
Eso nos
mesa.
puede ayudar.
Sí lo traemos.
When is the next CPP meeting? I know you meet with them.
You know what, I gotta be with them next week in Seattle, so I mean, the sooner the better, but then again, I'm in constant communication and I'm on committees where I could discuss with them directly, but, I'm gonna be dealing with, the director's boss, and I could tell, hey, I'm gonna have some list, and hopefully he can even approach these individuals directly, so see what I could do.
I'll follow it up with Congressman Cuellar staff
Thanks, I appreciate
to
that.
see kind of how we're
Thank
doing
you
on
very
that.
much. Good point, Mr. Fernández and Mr. Maldonado.
Sí, y con yo.
Hacemos la lista.
Y ustedes entonces
Sí.
pasan a
Sí.
JD.
Perfecto.
Okay, there's anything else for other business?
Just wanted to share how that community, that connectivity right there, how it moves forward, and just, recent conversations with the recent project, the CHART project, was the Unified Voice of Laredo to Austin was the driving force that caused that to happen. And they said, when we're committed, when we see you committed, then we're committed. And so that same effort right here, I mean, I enjoy these meetings all the time. I don't own a single truck or move it, but I do a lot of planning for everybody and transportation. And so taking that, the next step, right, we have the largest inland port, as we always talk about, but as well as the largest region in Mexico serving this industry. And so having that unified voice and those two strong wheels at the power, at the helm, you can say some of these innovative approaches that we're trying to take would be taken a lot more serious because we're trying to do something, like we said, not repeating, and we're doing something innovative to reduce that congestion. Supply chains in the United States, as you all know, is seen as a national security, and so
Yes.
the emergency button is on now, and it's not being let go, and so reducing congestion is top of mind, top priority. So I think we're heading the right direction, and we just continue, like, if we make that decision or saying, hey, Laredo and Nuevo Laredo wants to take that, let the driver choose, then I think that they at least be open to it, right? Hear us out.
Together we do a lot. Well, thank you very much.
Who from TechStart is going to the BPBXT, do you know?
I do not know, but I'll volunteer myself. But I'll ask, just to have get somebody.
We'll have another voice there.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to our item number 7, which is schedule next meeting date and any discussion there is, so.
One suggestion, if I may, Mr. Chairman, is changing the time to try a morning meeting. So I know we're gonna do it now every other month, so the next one would be in May. My suggestion would be Wednesday, May 17th, or Wednesday, May 24th at 10 a.m. Whatever, but try a morning one, see how that works for all of us, and maybe we can start switching around to be early in the day meetings.
Is everybody okay trying out in morning at 10 a.m. and see how that goes for all of us? I know, 6 sometimes picks up your day and you have to leave the office early, but, so we could always try it out and then always reschedule to do 12 later, another time, and see which one works. But is everybody okay? I know Perez always comes to all of our meetings. It's a 10 a.m. meeting for you, Ms. Limon, and your staff.
The fourth.
The 24th?
The 24th.
The 24th,
You know what, I would suggest that I ain't gotta travel on the 17th, 24th would be great for me, so.
right?
May, right?
May 24th
Perfect.
at 10?
Perfect.
Second.
May 24th at 10 a.m. I need a motion, please.
Motion?
Have it at
May 24th at
Second,
10
Jean
a.m.
Lindgren. And all in favor? Aye. Motion to adjourn?
Motion, second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, everybody, for a lot of participation today.
Thank you.